Welcome to Healthy Skeptics, where we take a no BS approach to holistic health.
We're a mother-daughter duo who believe in redefining health by going beyond rigid protocols, detox fads, and restricted diets.
Here, we dig deep into root causes, challenging traditional and holistic medicine, and talk about what really works in today's world to help you feel your best.
Join us as we sift through the noise, tackle myths, and offer real insights into holistic health with a healthy dose of skepticism.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Healthy Skeptics. Today, we wanted to talk about, we think this is an important conversation, whether or not you've seen the show on Netflix, Apple Cider Vinegar. I think it came out at the beginning of the month.
New on Netflix.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert at the very beginning here. If you haven't seen it and you don't know the story, don't listen.
Well, or listen, because it's really interesting. It's based on a true story. Obviously, it's you know, they took liberties, but for the most part, it is a true story. And I just asked before we hopped on, I was like, why do you think this is important that we have this conversation? And I'll just, let you say what you were saying, because I think it's interesting.
The only thing I was saying is it's so interesting because this is where we're at as a society. It's like, you know, there's a couple of big ones that have been out, this Apple Cider Vinegar and then Scamanda. Two stories of people who have faked cancer and made money, got notoriety, became famous, won awards, whatever that happens, right? And it's like, but here we are as a society. We're so connected to a story that people are just, they can make anything up. They can tell you something that tugs on your heartstrings and you believe them. Because we're all looking for that. Like, we're all looking for something to connect with. And especially if we're ill, we're not getting what we need from the community that we're supposed to put our trust in, which is, you know, the medical community trying to help us through this. And it's like, oh, I heard this person, she has this story and it worked for her, so now it must be going to work for me. And we're just getting our health information from a bunch of people, general, normal human being people, with
that are living in a lived experience,
stories, and they're giving health advice, and people are following it. And it's crazy. It's crazy to me that this is how we have evolved in the, you know, social media space. So that's why I was saying I think it's an important conversation to have, because this is one more of those stories, which I did not realize there's Facebook groups out there of people who fake their cancer, like that people are exposing people who are faking cancer.
Yeah. It's not just, yes, these are the two big stories, this Scamanda and this one, but it's not limited to these two people. I mean, this happens all the time.
I personally know someone who has done this. I won't say anymore.
Specifically for attention, not for money, but for attention.
Please care about me. Please, you know, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
It's fascinating, the human psyche, I will say. But anyway, so for those of you listening that haven't watched it, the story is based on Belle Gibson, who's a real person, Australian wellness app creator. For essentially all she really did was put together recipes.
Yeah.
That was
pretty app.
Yeah, it was an app. It was a grocery app and recipe app. And you know, back when that was new. And so it was a really big deal. And at the end of the day, that's all she was really selling, right? But the problem was the story she tied to it was that she had terminal brain cancer and was curing herself through diet. And what I thought was, on a side note, what I thought was so funny throughout this whole show is that even when she went to like the different places to promote her wellness app, or was at different parties or wherever where people were all like enlightened, yeah, I'm a vegan and I'm a whatever, they're all drinking and partying.
I know.
And I thought that was just, obviously, like, we don't know if that was true, right? But I enjoyed the contrast of like the way people behave or what they say online and versus what they're probably actually doing behind the scenes. And if someone's trying to cure themselves of cancer by eliminating all the toxins and food and nutrition, they're not smoking. She was like smoking cigars and drinking and all the things.
Well, she was smoking, taking pills. I mean, she was doing all kinds of things. I think cocaine at one point. This is all dramatization in the movie. But I will say, she did win a Cosmo Award, and I'm betting that they weren't drinking fruit juice at the party, you know? So,
right.
Yeah, you know. So, yeah, so there's, no, it is interesting. But you see that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of incongruent, you know, I was going to use a word and now the word left me as quickly as it was coming out of my mouth. But there's a lot, you know, a lot of, even in general, like people, like if you just look at some people, like another person that we know fairly well who has a certain business online, and what she does in private life is not what she's selling to people.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking about while I was watching this. Was that exact thing. Like they promote a certain lifestyle, and it's not even that maybe they vary so much off of that path, but it's claiming, their claims are that this lifestyle is what changed everything. But they're only following it maybe like 65-70% of the time, and no one's honest about that. And whether or not it actually helped, or you know, is not really what's in question. But then why not just be honest about it? Be like, yeah, I made these changes and it was great, but I'm still doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have this, like, I feel like I have a whether it's like a toxic trait or whatever, I'm not really sure, but being in the wellness industry, I think maybe it's a trait that as I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is why I'll never be famous. Not that fame is like a goal at all.
Yeah.
But the ability to, because one of the things, and there's multiple people that said it about this person, about Belle, her ability to create a story that she believes in so deeply. Like she was able to portray this deep belief in something, whether it was true or not, but she created a story and then like a hope, a belief behind it that people like really wanted to rally behind and get behind, which is why she became so big. And especially in the wellness space, like I just think to myself, I do think in general, you can eat better and you can treat your body well and you can do all these things and you will feel better. But so much is also out of our control because, and this is, I think it's also a worldview difference where I do believe there are things and there are illnesses and there are diseases that are lifestyle induced 100%.
Yeah, some of our very common chronic illnesses are
so
great part.
Lifestyle induced. So you can reverse or quote unquote heal yourself from those things, obviously, but also from a worldview perspective. Like I am in the worldview camp where we live in a broken world and like some things are just out of our control. And it's this whole, the whole wellness thing. I will never be the person that can portray this like transcendental hope on health, like on all the lifestyle things. So it's, no, let me finish. So it's, it was that where I'm like, that's what people like glom onto. And I thought what was really interesting is there's the crisis management guy who was a addict and alcoholic. And he went back to like an AA meeting in the show. And he was talking about how Belle told him she had ringworm. And then someone on the internet said, drink a bunch of apple cider vinegar, hence the name of the show, and that'll get rid of it. And she was chugging it and chugging it and chugging it. And he was like, what's interesting is, this is what people do. It's like a false worshiping of health right? Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
will, because he was saying, I would do anything, even if I know in the back of my brain that it's not going to work. I would do anything in this moment. Because he said, because of his addiction, he had been 15 days sober, and he's like, my skin's crawling and itchy, I can't sleep, like all this. I would do anything in this moment that someone told me to, whether it was so outrageous, just to feel better. And at the end of it, he was like, but at the end of the day, like nothing can cure this human experience that we're
Yeah.
all having. And that was the thing. Like when we don't feel good, especially when it comes to our health, we are so vulnerable to just give me anything. I'll do anything at this point so I can feel better. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in addition to that, I think that there's also human nature to want a shortcut. Something.
Yeah.
And so some of these things, are while making changes and doing those things, but it's like I can tell you this one thing that's going to fix your problem. Whether like she had ringworm, drink apple cider vinegar, which is just funny in itself. But it's like that's going to fix you. Okay, great. I'm going to go do that. Or I have this one product that for example, like colostrum. If you take colostrum, like your skin, everything's going to work. Everybody's looking for the shortcut too. So it's like if you can attach a promise of something that somebody wants to a very short term, easy, pop a pill, take a shot, do whatever. That is going to that is also part of the attraction. It's not requiring a lot from you. It's I want to feel better, and I want to feel better yesterday.
Yes, but this was my note on this, and this is where I was getting with the guy that was talking, because he said, and he was talking about that he would have done anything, and I said, it's a false reality that people are being sold. It's something completely unattainable. The hope, and even with Mel Gibson, right? It's this idea that you can attain something that's actually unattainable, which is a symptom-free life with no disease or illness. And that's where my worldview counters a lot of the health and wellness space, and worldview are just like lived, like be a human for 5 minutes and you'll find out like you cannot live a life without symptoms, without illness, without a disease, no matter the effort you put behind it. And maybe that's like not a hopeful message, I believe. And like that's the thing, that's why I said I'm never gonna, this is my toxic trait, being in the wellness. I believe that people can feel better. I believe that we can have more energy. I believe that we can have like better skin and better hair, and not have diabetes, or have a body that's essentially like an immune system that's robust. So stress resilience, that's great. I think we can attain those things. What I think is unattainable, that is often being sold from the wellness industry, is that you can be free from all of the things. And that's the reality, that
mentality. Like I can be perfect,
that I can somehow transcend my very human experience that everyone experiences, and be without anything. And that's where I'm like, oh, that's that message of like freedom and hope and all this stuff. And even the girl, and we can get into this in a second, but that's that piece of it that like I often miss in my messaging, and which I'll never put in my messaging, like when we're out talking about what we do. And it's
actually our biggest, like anytime we work with anybody, anytime we talk to people about marketing something, or we have a new idea, product, book, whatever, and it's like
I'm just a realist.
It's our biggest fault is we are incapable. But it's like, but that's the thing. It's like we do have a healthy skepticism to a lot of things. life included. We're not dewy-eyed, the whole world is wonderful. I mean, we used to say Pollyanna. That's a really old term, but the Pollyanna kind of feeling. It's like, no, we're more real. We're more realistic. Mm-hmm. And, you can achieve a certain level, but, perfection isn't going to happen. Like, right. And I don't care who tells you.
It's unattainable. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. And then because what's happening, I think, in the wellness industry, and this was part of the movie that I made a note on. So I think in like one of the first couple episodes, there's the girl, Mila, who has the rare cancer, mm-hmm. and they want her to amputate her arm, and she doesn't want to do that. So she goes to seek alternative therapies. And she was talking, she went to that like wellness retreat place, and she was talking in the hot tub, and she was saying like, I knew in my 20s or whatever, and when she was in college or before that, she's like, I knew I was putting all this crap in my body. I knew I was out partying. I knew I wasn't sleeping. I knew this was going to come back and essentially like make me sick. Like she somehow gave herself cancer. And then in the same breath, there's an extreme guilt that comes with the fact that, if you do get sick like this, it's somehow your fault. Or if you get a chronic illness or autoimmune illness, it is inherently your fault. And it's now all on you to fix. And it is an underlying wave in the wellness industry. It's like, it's great and empowering to be like, yes, I have all the control and I can heal myself and blah, blah, blah. But in the same vein, it makes you feel very guilty and shameful. I know I went through that when, like, the very first time, I think I was like 23 or 4. I don't remember what it was, but I went to get scans. I think you made me, like, I don't know, you guys were doing something. And I was like, sure, I'll go do it too. And they told me, and it was more of an alternative wellness thing. And they told me all these things that were wrong with my body. So, from blood sugar, from my metabolism, from my gut, like all of these things. And then we're like, and it's your fault. And I remember going out to the car and like sobbing. I don't know if you remember this. Do you have a memory of this?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh. I remember this so vividly. And I was sobbing and sobbing. And I was like, I can't believe I did this to my body, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, great. Then in your next breath and in my next breath, I was like, I can fix it. And that's when I went down all of the other things. Right. So yes, it's empowering in one sense, but there is a huge sense of guilt. And I think, again, worldview perspective, like sometimes we just get dealt a bad hand. There's something that happens in our body that, it doesn't respond well. And you can live this quote unquote perfect life and bad things could still happen. Or, we all partied in our 20s and ate like crap, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to give yourself cancer. If that you got cancer, that's somehow your fault. And I still don't know how to reconcile that, if I'm honest, because I do believe so much about our health is in our control. But I hate the guilt.
I think we learn along the way too. Like 20 years ago, there's a lot of things where there's a lot more cancers today, and we don't need to go into that in this episode, and the reasons why that might be the case. But we've had a lot of, over the last, let's say 15 years, 20 years, somewhere in that range, there's been a lot of changes to our environment in many different ways, and so some of that, comes into play. Like our environment plays a big part in our health and where we live and the different exposures that we have attended, right? And it's like, you cannot live in a bubble. You can't, go and seal yourself somewhere and be, and then think that, and even then something might happen to you. I remember my favorite show, I don't even remember what it was, 2000s, I guess, was House. I loved the show House. I watched every episode, mostly to make fun of the things that I knew, like everything was lupus, and but then I was like, that's not true. I was trying to find all of the, gotchas, like that's not really real. But there was one episode where this woman came in, and they had to tell her she had brain cancer, and it was incurable. Nothing you're going to do, you're going to die, basically, right? And she was like, but I did all the things. I didn't ever eat sugar. I didn't ever have a drink. I didn't do this. And then the next scene, the doctors walk into the room and she's there with this big cake, big chocolate cake, just shoveling it in. Like, what difference does it make? Kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that whole idea that it's, somehow everything is in our control. That's so far from the truth.
Well, and I think it prevents what this does, and what I think the wellness industry is now doing, and I'm talking about this a lot, like I feel like on Instagram, is that it's like we are trying to live in a bubble now, and people are so focused on doing the right things, and now we're having to like detox all the time, and we're worried about EMFs, and there's cell towers going up, and now we have to move, and we have to have all of these devices to help us stay healthy, and we can't go out, and we can't socialize, and we can't eat certain foods, and we definitely don't drink. I mean, yes, okay, alcohol is one of those that like it is very like there's a lot of research behind the downsides of that, but we're all like not living our lives anymore.
It's too much fear.
Well, it's so much, it's fear of everything. But nobody, so I had said this the other day on Instagram, but I was like, I don't care about longevity. Like, I know some people do, and that's great, but like, if that means I have to live and create some kind of alternate world for myself, where I feel stressed going on vacation, or I say no to fun opportunities, or if it's not like within my routine or whatever it is, or if I miss a workout, I freak out on a small scale. Like, I don't want that life. So I would rather like enjoy my life and feel good doing it to a certain extent. Like, sure, I'm going to get sick. I may have some months where I have a bad period because that was a particular, like I was on vacation for 2 weeks and I didn't do the things, or what, right? Like, I would rather that life, like a life of some things here and there, and feel free to live, versus this over here where maybe I'm like aesthetically super pleasing, and I have this perfect attainable body, and maybe I never get sick, and maybe whatever, right? I have all the energy in the world, but I'm so rigid in my lifestyle. Like, if I had to pick one, I would live over here in this camp. Now I understand that there are people that deal with like really bad issues that are debilitating and don't allow them to live, like it doesn't allow them to even live in this camp. And then sure, there's a time and place to maybe
you spend a short time there trying to reset, or trying to rebuild things, reset.
But the goal is, I think sometimes people get stuck there, and then it becomes they start to live in this camp, and then the fear of leaving the camp, leaving the bubble is so extreme. And especially because they did experience really, debilitating illness that they can't ever get here. Right. Which is like, my goal is to never, if you come to us with something debilitating or more extreme, my goal is to coach you through that so you don't ever end up stuck. So you can move into this camp where, you might have some things that pop up here and there because you're human, and symptoms happen, but you can be free to live, and you should.
I think, like going back to the movie and you think about some of the things that people talk about, like the therapies that people talk about, or, and it's like, they get very rigid because they're trying to get rid of cancer, right? And they're buying into certain therapies, programs, whatever, because it cured this person. And now I've lost my ability to be discerning, or to actually be open to listen to other things, because I am now focused on that person has the same cancer I do, or just talking about cancer because of the show, but that person has the same cancer I do. She's out blogging about how she drank 14 juices a day and did coffee enemas 5 times a day, and now all of a sudden she's cured. I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to ignore the community around me that is trying to say, maybe that's a good thing, but at least be open to looking at what are all of the options, not just getting stuck in one thing. And that goes both ways. It's not just social media, people looking and going, oh, that person's social media, emotional response to something. It's the other side too. It's the actual oncologists that are doing the exact same thing. Only, with a medical background, but they're doing the same thing. If you were to have a cancer diagnosis and you spent the time going to see, let's say, 5 different oncologists, you are going to hear and freaking to you 5 options that are completely different, because each one of them have a bias that they operate from, whether it's because of research they're doing, this is the way we've always done it, this is all I know, whatever it happens to be, there's a bias. And so it's kind of same but different. I don't know. It's like, it's kind of the same as what people are going through in, on the like trying to find the one thing that's going to help me and sticking with that, I think that there's a good balance.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that was one of the things in the movie that stood out to me, was when Mila goes to talk to her oncologist, and there's basically like a round table and they have a whole team. This is your surgeon, this is your oncologist, this is your psych person, this is blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't like the option that you gave me. Like, I don't want to cut off my arm. Give me another option. And they were basically, and I know you can speak to this because you've had a lot of experience with oncologists and cancer and all the things. And I asked you, I was like, is this really what they do? And you said, absolutely 100%. And it's no, this is the option. And if you don't take this option, you will die. And you saw it with the other girl too, Lucy, who has breast cancer. Her oncologist did the same thing. She was like, if you don't treat this, you're going to go to stage 4 and you will die. And it was like, it's very like, if you don't do it this way. And all she was saying in that moment was, give me something else. I know there are other things. Yeah. Tell me what they are. Let's have a conversation. And they were very unwilling until she kept pushing. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess there's this other therapy that we could try first, but still, like, this is the way you need to go. And I was just thinking to myself when I was watching that, this is why people turn to the alternative therapies, that are probably quackery a lot of the time. I know in the show they said,
good, but
but depending on the person, because everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
So
she went to
mistletoe therapy. No, the mistletoe therapy first.
Oh, the mistletoe thing.
That was what she wanted to try.
But the funny I was going to say, but the funny thing about, we talk about this a lot. I think we've said a lot about, we talk about this a lot in podcasts and in general life. It's like, there are always threads of truth. There's a thread of truth that will run, but that doesn't mean that it's the total answer. So while mistletoe has certain properties for tumor lysis, or to kill a tumor, right? It's like, but it's not going to like necessarily cure the exact tumor that you have. And you have to, you know, but people, I'm sure, I thankfully have not had firsthand experience with cancer, but in working with a lot of people with cancer, it's like, it's a very emotional place to be when you hear that. You know, I mean, like, I can't imagine all of the emotions that go through, you know, your thought process. And so then if you find a glimmer of hope, because then now it's, cancer is still, it's so funny because it shouldn't be. You hear cancer, you think death, imminent death, you know? And it's like, oh, you know, I wish that hadn't been the narrative for 50 years. But it's like, now it's not that, but I think we're going too far the other way. There are some wonderful oncologists in the country, just to, you know, say that not all are the same. I think in our bigger institutions, they kind of get to be not as open-minded, but there are some wonderful oncologists that do great jobs combining alternative therapies along with, or changing the way a chemo, for example, is delivered. It's fractional instead of, you know, full dose, or, you know, whatever happens to be. There are some open-minded, very successful, meaning, you know, by remission rates, very successful oncologists out there. But you have to seek that out, right?
And they're also, correct me if I'm wrong, but those oncologists are treating the person in front of them.
Correct.
As an actual person.
Outside of insurance, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yes. But for the most part, and that's part of the other issue, but it's like, there is a wall that you hit in conventional medicine. And here's the thing, like, and both of us feel this way. Conventional medicine is not this like dark and gloomy thing. And it's life-saving. And there is, you know, these people are educated and they do have a lot of experience, but it's because of that, it's almost as if there's a blanket protocol that gets pushed on people versus the doctors that you can find that actually look at you like you're an individual human being sitting in front of them and go, okay, how can we tailor this experience to what you're looking for, what I know, what my experience has told me, and like be open-minded and have and try different things if the person in front of you is willing to do that, or is saying specifically that that's what they want.
Right.
Because there are people that walk in, they're like, I'll just do whatever you say, tell me what to do, and they'll do it, and that's their choice. But I think that's my point is that if we could get and I hate like even conventional versus alternative. There was a question I wanted to ask you on this in this vein, actually, but if we could get all doctors, even in the functional space, to operate with that in mind, like on both sides, it's not all good or it's not all bad. And how can we actually just treat the person in front of us and create a plan that actually works, and then they believe in it, which I think goes a long way.
It does. Your mental, where you are mentally when you're dealing with, you know, what I would call, you know, life limiting situations. Right?
Because I think about, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think about this girl, Mila, because she was like, I don't want to cut off my arm. You're not giving me any option. I'm going to go do this other therapy in this place in Mexico, which this was all based off of a real.
It's in Arizona. I said,
yes, but the place in the movie.
Oh, okay.
But this is all based off of a real clinic that does exactly what she did, the protocol that she did in the movie, in Arizona. And part of me is like, placebo effect is still a very scientific thing. Like just because it's a placebo or you didn't get the actual medicine doesn't mean it didn't work. That's what the placebo effect is meaning it worked without the thing because of this belief that it will.
That's part of the drug study. That's part of drug trials. The placebo, like it's compared. That's your control.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
but I think people hear placebo and they're like, oh, it wasn't real. And I was like, no, that it is real. It's a real phenomenon that happens. Yeah. And it's kind of like, that's how I saw it. Cause what happened to her is she was quote unquote cured for I think like 3 or 4 years. And then cancer came back with a vengeance and she died. And then her mom died too. And it's a very heartbreaking story. And this was based off of a true family, although it was a little different because the real family, and I want to say this just out of respect to the real family, because they were pretty upset with the way that the movie portrayed them, because she was not the real person, was their oncologist was like, we can take your arm, not sure if it's going to make a difference. So, you're just going to die. And that's why she seeked out alternative therapy. And then in the movie, of course, because there's a bias against the alternative therapy in the movie, they basically were like, if you would have cut off your arm, you would have lived. But that wasn't the actual true story. There was a reason why. And she actually tried to go back to conventional medicine when it came back, but it was the same story. They just couldn't do anything for her. But a part of me is like, you can speak more to this clinic and what they did and why they do what they do. I don't buy it. Like, I don't understand how that could ever cure somebody of cancer. But I do believe in the placebo effect. And this woman truly believed that the amputation, the chemo was not right for her and that this was what was going to work. And so I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that she could have been in remission for a few years with that belief system. Eventually the physical thing took over. But maybe you can speak to this.
Well, I was just going to say, but part of that too is kind of like, when you think about, just for example, you think about people like that go vegan all of a sudden and then they feel better, right? It's like, oh, but what were you doing beforehand? Were you eating McDonald's every day and, drinking tons of coffee and and then all of a sudden you changed your habits and your body's getting better resources. It's the same thing with this, right? What were you doing? And then all of a sudden you changed and you go to an alternative, place, which does focus a ton on nutrition. I mean, like, very rigid protocols around food. I mean, like how much food, what type of food, like everything about food, right? You're going to juice it, or you're going to do this, or you're going to do whatever, but it's a lot of it is based on diet, nutrition, feeding your body. So if you think about, you went from a place of, I didn't ever do that, to now I'm going alternative and I'm doing that and I'm feeding my body and it's getting resources and I believe in this. That makes sense, because now your body can do the work it's supposed to do, which is to not even have that cancer start in the first place. Like that's kind of its job, right?
But if it worked.
I'm saying, so you get a period of time where remission is 1000% possible. And it's always remission. Cancer is never cured. It is always remission. It is always in remission, hopefully, until, you die of something else, hopefully. You know what I mean? It doesn't come back. But for her and these clinics, and there's two of them I know, I've been to one. I actually was very interested in what they were doing at one point in my journey. It was very interesting, and they have all of their research. They've been doing this since the 1900s, early 1900s. A lot of research, and I think for some types of cancer, some of these alternative treatments are appropriate because of the source of the cancer, whatever, right? The type of tumor, etc. I think that there are some very valid, not anecdotal, but well researched within the small community, but still, there are reasons why this could happen. As a general rule, should everybody go and be, juicing and, we know someone.
Coffee enemas?
Yeah, but we know someone who tried this at the end of her journey. And it was like, and a lot of people seek this stuff out at the end, like when other things have failed. And it's unfortunate, because I think if we could start by really nourishing the body and doing some of these things that the alternative clinics focus on, and then see what can we do, like how do we eradicate this? Maybe it's chemo, maybe it's radiation, maybe it's surgery, but how about we get the body to a better place first,
so that it can handle a more intense process. The same thing that we do with lesser things. We're like, great, we're going to re-nourish the body, we're going to make sure your stress responses are good, and then we can do the deeper work.
Right.
No, it makes
So
sense. Yeah. It, yeah, it does make sense. And I think, one of the things I wanted to ask you too in this vein was, we've separated, okay, because functional medicine, alternative it all was born out of this frustration with the conventional. It's like a lot of pharmaceuticals and a lot of one size fits all solutions and all stuff. And we're talking about cancer, and it was for a long time one size fits all. I think it's getting better. It's not so one sizey, but it still is.
They still have 3 tools in their toolbox. They
Okay.
still don't look outside of their 3 tools.
So
in general,
right.
I'm generalizing.
We've had this such huge divide now. And I was just curious. I was like, what was because 20, 25 years ago, you were at the beginning of functional medicine.
Yeah.
What was the intention? Like, what was it like functional medicine 20 years ago? Because in my brain, I have a feeling it was just medical doctors trying to look at the person as an individual with their same medical knowledge that they have, and the education that they had. They were just trying to look at the body as a whole. It's as a whole, as all the systems communicating and talking to each other, and like how can we introduce other things like food, for example, or environmental things, and meld it together so we have like real medicine.
Right.
Correct?
And it was,
how did we get so?
And that's exactly that's exactly what it is. And I think part there's probably many reasons. One is the insurance model that we have. So it's very difficult. It's time consuming, especially upfront. If you're working with someone, and even back then, we said it was a 60-minute intake. We were going to do a 60-minute intake with you when you came to see us, right? In the functional world, 60 minutes. We're going to dive into your background. We're going to understand, you as a person, right? Well, insurance kind of came in, and it's now you're paid on how many people you see. You're bonused on certain, giving certain things, certain protocols. And I was going to say not vaccination. What's the word? But I was going to use a different word, so I'll probably get banned for saying that. But you're paid on that. You're paid on numbers. You're not paid on the ability to develop a relationship with your patient.
But also, caveat to that, it's a consumer-based business. And so if the patient isn't happy, so a lot of times too, the patient comes in and is like, just give me the antibiotics, just give me the thing. Right. And you kind of have to do what they say to a certain extent.
You do, because people
are lazy.
Well, no, but they're surveyed. They're surveyed later. And if, your numbers aren't right, then you're not compensated. So, in both the hospital, from a higher level of running the hospital and the monies that come in, if your scores aren't X, Y, Z, and then down to the individual, I'm not compensated then because I didn't hit the numbers that I needed to hit. And it shouldn't be a numbers game. It's this is a people game.
But that's the reason why you split.
Yep.
But it's become so divided now, and I just think
we've gotten away from the medicine part of it.
Yeah. So why this woman was able to make, and part of the issue with social media and the wellness industry and all the things is like, we're snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've kind of gone back to the 1800s, when you think about it, right? Yes. And there is a lot of unfortunate people out there that are just trying to make money and become famous and stretch the truth, if not outright lie, about what it is that they're selling, without a whole lot of background or knowledge or anything like that. I mean, this girl liked to talk. She did. I mean, you watched her and she was like making recipes all the time. It's like, oh, well, wouldn't it be cool to create an app? And her app was top 10 in Apple. Huge. That's huge, But where she got into trouble was then the fame kicks in, right? And then she's told this story that now the lie gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now she's running, using her influence to raise money for a kid,
multiple charities.
I didn't look to see if that story was true.
It was,
but she basically was using. It was true.
It was.
No, I was just gonna say that's that. Well, that one kills me.
Well, it was
raising money for people and then taking the money, and then
the way she got. That's how she really got, because that was all true. That's how she really got caught, or how they caught her criminally and what indicted her, I guess.
Okay.
Was through charity fraud. So that was all true. Most of her story in the movie is true. The parts that weren't 100% true were like the Mila and her mom's story. They took some liberties, and then there's another girl, Lucy, in the story, which is supposed to just be a representation of the people that had cancer that followed Mel Gibson, and left conventional medicine for alternative therapies. And in the movie, they show her going on like ayahuasca retreat, which killed me.
That was the point where there was one moment where I was just like, okay, first of all, I've heard a lot about this stuff, right? And then here she is in the middle of,
Peru, the jungle.
like jungle Peru, sitting in a circle with a whole bunch of people with plastic buckets in front of them, and they're all vomiting, right? And it's like, ooh, drink this magic potion and you're going to be healed. And everybody is literally just retching into these buckets. And then she has a
vision.
Oh, you're going to call it a vision?
Whatever. She has an
hallucination. And she said she wakes up and is like somehow transformed, goes and sits back in this circle of pukey people. And the woman goes, would you like to do this again? And she's like, yes. Okay. And she goes and gets her little,
credit card machine
processing
in the middle. And it's like the middle of nowhere jungle. There's like tents set up. There's no bathrooms. And she comes out with her credit card machine. And it's like, yeah. I thought that was beautifully done, by the way, from the whoever, obviously there's like I said, the whole movie is very biased against the wellness industry. But that was just so funny. Agreed. But what I did love about what they did with Lucy's story at the very end was, obviously, so, comes out Mel Gibson's a fraud, whatever. So she does go back to conventional treatment. But they show her melding the two together, which is like, to me, was inspirational and also hopeful of like the whole story of like, yeah, she was still going and getting the chemo, but at the same time, she was finding things she enjoyed again. Like they were, as a couple, they were having a good time again. They were going out, and I think they were like singing karaoke, and then she was doing some yoga classes still, or they were on the beach in the tubs, and she was still eating well. And so there's this like melding of the two. And I was like, that I liked that they ended it like that, because I think that's what some of the, like you were saying, being what some of these alternative therapies can do is strengthen the your mental load with all of this. They can help you enjoy your life. They can help you feel better while you're doing more conventional treatment. They can help strengthen the body. Like there's so many good things about them. It's just when we walk around saying apple cider vinegar is going to cure your eggs, that's where we have the problem. And it is harming so many people. And I can't tell you how many people we get where they're like, well, we joined so-and-so's membership and we're following his protocols and now we're here. And they're like way worse off than they would have been if they would have just seen us a year prior or whatever. Like things have gotten so bad.
Well, on the flip side of that, sometimes we get a lot of people who are very disillusioned by the conventional world. And then here you are, and it's like, well, no, you have an infection, so you really actually have to take the antibiotic. Oil of oregano isn't going to work for you here. We got to do this, or fungal treatment, or whatever.
Or how about the woman? I mean, we had a client, we literally had to convince her for over a month to go get a scope, and she actually did have cancer. And part of the difference between me and you can sit here and you have a medical license and an education versus a health and wellness influencer. Had that woman gone to someone who is just like, even just like a health coach, sure, they have, some certifications and stuff, but no medical background, but they're giving medical information, or they're running labs, and then being like, oh, well, and I'm just going to use this as an example from this case that we had, but it's like, oh, your iron's low. We're just going to keep like feeding you red meat or iron supplements or whatever they're going to do, because they don't know the weird undertones or the little things to pull out, or like, that's not right. Or I've seen this before in more severe cases, or because of my education, I know that the dots aren't connecting. Right. You need to go seek out the actual treatment. And it's like, great. And you know what? We caught it. She's doing amazing. Yeah. She had the surgery.
Well, I was going to say she also had, we had worked with her for a few months before that too. And so she was much stronger internally. Her body had resources, so that going through this now, her body had the resources to be able to go through it and come out the other side, doing very, very well. So,
right. But that's the dangers of being online, or the Instagram, or the big, huge promises that the wellness industry gives. If you have something more serious happening, you should seek someone that has a medical license. And it's great if they also are both, right? Like you have NP, you have both. I think it's a good thing. I think it's important to have a medical scope when it's more serious issues. And I think that's what's frightening, is that there's so many people being like, I cured my Hashimoto's or my autoimmune illness doing this, and so now I'm a health coach and I'm going to have someone else run my labs because I can't run them for me, and and you're going to pay me to be on my app, and I'm going to coach you through what I did. Yeah, that's scary.
Yes, it is scary. And there's just so many different things. There's so many different ways things can go. You can start off on one path and the body changes, or gives you another communication piece that says, oh wait, but we cleared this, but now I can actually see what was going on. And it's something that's a little bit more serious than, just eat your fruits and vegetables. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, right. So sometimes that also is a piece of this, where if you can, get the foundational lifestyle things down, if you are feeding your body appropriately, that can clear up a lot of things, where then it's like, oh, we're still not getting it. There's probably something underlying here that needs a much deeper dive, so that we can figure it out, because it could be something way more serious, or not. But at least you would have someone with some education and experience behind them that could tease that out and get you on the right path. And not be so dogmatic that it's like my way or the highway. It's like, no, we got to pull in all resources from everywhere to get you, what you need. So,
So if you take anything away from this, a couple of lessons would be, one, you are, when you don't feel good, you are at your most vulnerable state. And there's a belief system, or a belief, or a hope that sometimes the wellness industry gives, that you can attain perfection, that you can live symptom free, that you can be transcendent above all humankind, and you will never, feel anything bad. And usually there's a product associated with that.
Or a protocol or a program.
That's being sold. So, be weary of those big promises. And it's not like they're going to flat out be like, you'll be symptom free forever. But what they will do is show you images or, create a story where the person is living this amazing life without anything. Yeah. And you can have that too. And it's like, yeah, you can live a really great life, but shit's still going to happen. Sorry. That's one. That's my realist.
Yes.
Part.
Good point.
Second thing is there is a world in which we can marry the two. Mm-hmm. And we should be on our side, on the more functional side. And I only say that like our side, like on the the less siloed systems and less medication side of things, which is where we fall. So on our side, there can be a melding of the two. And I think more of us should be looking to bring things together in the medical community versus continue to separate, because it's that separation that's creating these pockets of wellness influencers that are really, really dangerous. And I hope also those doctors that are really on the conventional side and the allopathic side are also becoming a little bit more open-minded, so we aren't pushing people towards those more dangerous alternatives. But yeah, those are the two big things that at least I took away from watching this. And, don't trust someone based on what their own experience is. It's great to connect with something. Like, we all have a story, and I think that's important. And it can provide empathy. I was saying this, like, I've gone through things in my health journey. So, and when I see a woman in front of me that has PCOS or endometriosis, I'm like, I can relate to you. But it doesn't mean that, if I had nothing else, if I didn't have you as, if we were in a team, if we didn't have a medical background or any of those things, like, that I could sit down and be like, oh, well, I can help you better than somebody who does. And I think that that's an important distinction.
Yeah, I do too. I think those are great points to end.
But
good job.
Anyways, a little bit of a ramble, but we watched this, and it's such a heartbreaking story. And really, I think there's just so many important parts.
I would tell people it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. For sure.
It is just, yes, keep in mind that there's some bias, but I think all in all, it's an important story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it is the world we live in. So.
I know. Yeah. Very timely. It was really good. It was really good.
Anywho. Also, don't drink apple cider vinegar for ringworm.
Yeah. It's a fungus. You actually need antifungal. Just saying.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll see you
later.